Welcome to the Tearsheet podcast. I'm Zack Miller. We're continuing to celebrate the winners of 2020's Bank Fintech Partnership Awards. Up today are our overall winners, two firms that changed significantly directly from the nature of their partnership that was struck almost 10 years ago. We have Tony Gorrell, CEO of Sutton Bank, a 130-year-old bank in Ohio, and Omri Dahan, Chief Revenue Officer at Marqeta, a leader in modern card issuance. I'll let them describe the nature of their partnership and how they modeled a collaboration that has become a paradigm for today's best fintech bank collaborations. Let's go.
Tony Gorrell, Sutton Bank. A little bit about myself. I've been at the bank here now. This is my 27th year. I grew up in the bank. As recently as October of last year, 2019, I'm now the CEO of the bank and have the privilege to serving all of our constituents. And prior to that, for 20 some odd years, I've been the CFO of the bank, and we've seen the bank grow up from a very small community bank to what it is today. And as far as Sutton Bank goes, we still operate in the community bank space, on I'd say at least half of what we do, which is kind of traditional spread-based business and banking. We're a relationship bank. We have niches in commercial lending, agricultural lending, and we serve our markets in the non-metro markets in Northwest Ohio and North Central Ohio. And that kind of leads us into how we, kind of years ago said we want to diversify our business because we saw what was going on in Ohio and most of the migrations to the bigger cities in Ohio, like Columbus, and we could have made a decision like we could either go down there and knock heads with everybody, or we could kind of diversify our revenue, and that's what we've done with the payments business and our relationship with Marqeta.
Great. I want to come back to that soon. Omri, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Omri Dahan. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer at Marqeta. I joined the early founding team back in 2011 and have been with the company ever since as Chief Revenue Officer, and basically helping to lead a team that thinks about things like our go-to-market strategy, how we originally got product market fit, how do we took that product market fit and turned it into a business, and more recently how we've scaled that business. And it's my fifth startup, first payments company, but payments is one of those industries where you can be at it for just as long as Tony has and still learn something new every day, which I'm excited about. And I've also been with the Sutton Marqeta partnership from the beginning as well.
Great. And so obviously we're here to celebrate the award that you guys both won, the Bank/Fintech Partnership Award. Omri, back to you. Can you talk about the genesis of your work with Sutton? What were you looking for in a partner bank? Because this goes back, I guess, to the really early days of Marqeta.
It sure does. We, in order to operate in the payments and financial services ecosystem in the United States, you can't just be a software company. You can't just come up with a good idea and bring it to market. You need to connect with the financial ecosystem and infrastructure that's been set up and it's been operations for years. And so when we went to go build a card product early in 2011, we understood that you need a network logo on that card. You need someone to print the plastic of the card, and you need a bank to issue that card. And so this was not too long after the Dodd-Frank Act of 2010, and there's been a lot of change going on in the industry around cards, change around interchange regulation, and just overall changes to who could issue cards. And so we talked to Visa, MasterCard, and Discover was the one that gave us our start. And they gave us a list of 8 issuing banks that we could talk to. We went around and talked to all of them, and they all said, that sounds really crazy what you want to do, so no thank you. We're not going to work with you. So we went back to Discover and we said, was that really it? Are there any others? And literally in the hallway, someone had said, oh, you all should talk to Sutton Bank in Ohio. So we picked up the phone. We talked to a gentleman there named Tim, who's still at the bank. And we got on a plane. We went out and visited them. And lo and behold, there was a real openness, a real willingness to meet with a group of payments innovators out of Silicon Valley. I suspect it was right around the time they were thinking about diversifying their revenue. And, the personal chemistry was really strong. They liked what we wanted to do, and that was the initiation and genesis of the relationship.
Interesting. And back over to you, Tony. Like, what was it like, interacting with Marqeta in those early days? What was their vision like? What, how was Sutton prepared, I guess, to have those conversations?
Well, it was interesting. We had been at this for a number of years in the payments business, and we're running some programs and things like that. We didn't have a presence out west, and especially in Silicon Valley, and it was that was the kind of the initial, like, yes, we definitely want to talk to the team at Marqeta, because it's just, hey, it's interesting with everything that was going on at the time and still goes on out in Silicon Valley, ultimately the fintech space. And then as we start to meet the Marqeta team and Omri, Jason, and Eric Bachman at the time, and people like that, we said, look, there's some synergy here and some energy here. So our thought was, well, why not? What's the downside for us, Sutton Bank, other than maybe time and a little bit of money? So we said, let's try it.
Well, so to that end, obviously, this wasn't just trying something new. It was really a different model for the bank, and one that was, sort of pioneered in the wake of this. Like, did it feel like a defining moment when you met with Marqeta, like changing into sort of becoming a utility at that point?
Well, we had already been in the business of doing card programs for close to 10 years at that point. But in the early days, we were trying to be the issuer, own the processing, maybe owning the program management, program ownership, everything. And we flipped that model kind of right amidst the crisis, 2008, 9, 10, sometime in there. And we kind of flipped it over to be more the issuer oversight. So provide the issuing gateway, and then, obviously the custodian and the safekeeper of the funds, and then also the oversight. And so we decided to do that around that same time period. And so then we were started to introduce to companies like Marqeta. And that's when we really said, hey, there's something here. We think we can potentially have an opportunity to scale this model much more than trying to kind of own the entire relationship and things like that. And so that's right at that same point that we were introduced to Marqeta.
And Omri, like, this was a first partnership for you guys. What was it like trying to get this off the ground when there wasn't necessarily a blueprint to follow?
Yeah, it was like trying to do something when you don't have a blueprint to follow. It was, you're trying to plug in different pieces here and there. I remember this was back in November of 2011. We launched our first kind of beta card program up in Portland and then down in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I remember, the first email went out and the product had been tested, and we were on the phone with the folks at Sutton and a few other folks, just to everybody watching the screens to see if the thing would work and the transactions would go through. And lo and behold, they did. And, at the time the strategy wasn't as clear as it is today. Looking backwards, we had a consumer card with our own brand on it. And it was a good 6 to 9 months to get it all working the way we wanted to. As I mentioned before, there are just a ton of pieces that need to all work together and fit. And when we moved eventually in 2013 to more of an enterprise strategy, which is rather than our brand on the card, let's power all these other great brands, which is eventually what became our business. We had to take that 9-month process and come up with a way to scale that so that rather than doing one program in 9 months, we could do one program in 2 months, and then eventually 2 programs in 1 month. And now we do, 4, 5, 6 programs in a given month. And that transition was actually quite a lot of work. And that's really the work Tony and I have been doing over the last several years together.
Got it. I want to switch gears a little bit to talk about cultures and cultural fit in the partnership. So obviously, Sutton Bank's 130 years old. Marqeta was less than 2 when you guys connected. Tony, what was it like? I guess, what were some of those early conversations like culturally? And I guess from that perspective, like, how did you ensure that, you guys were speaking the same languages?
Well, it's a good question. And for us, Sutton Bank's always had a history, maybe thinking a little differently than, say, our community bank brothers and sisters. We've always thought, we got this thing called a bank charter, and we don't take that lightly. And yes, we're going to support our communities. We're going to support, the type of lending and deposit taking we do, but we have a charter, so maybe there's some other things we can do with this charter. So it's very entrepreneurial. And when we met, really culturally, the Marqeta team is similar. It's very entrepreneurial and not afraid, to try things, to be nimble and switch gears when you need to switch gears. And they're really, and again, for us, it's all about the story for us. We knew we needed to diversify our revenue. If we were going to survive and continue to support, our communities out here in Ohio, we knew we had to do something else in order to ensure our survival.
Omri, back to you. In terms of the partnership, I'm curious, were there things that you learned looking back, like that were integral in creating a successful partnership? Like, what are some of those things that you could highlight?
Sure. I mean, I think that the word you used correctly was culture. I've always marveled at the last several years of innovation in fintech and payments, because what very few people really understand is it is the working together of cultures between if you look at that list of 8 banks, and now it's probably about 20 or 30, it's mostly in the Midwest. It's mostly people who have been at this for a very, very long time and who know the ins and outs of the regulations and who know the ins and outs of how to make money move efficiently, better than anybody on the West Coast or in Silicon Alley in New York. And so ignore that at your own peril is the kind of lesson that I've learned, which is you must understand the intricacies and nuances of the world of financial services and payments as well, or at least attempt to do it as well as folks like Tony and his team. And if you think that just moving quickly and breaking things is going to work in payments, it might break your company. And so I think being able to speak the same language, being able to really have an inquiry mindset to learn and to go to Ohio, to go to where your bank partner is and have dinner together, play golf together, talk about the world together, learn about what keeps them up at night. It's not the same things necessarily that keep us up at night. Some of them are, but they've got a regulator and an examiner that they need to make sure they're following those rules. And we've had to really learn about that and learn how to respect that and get ahead with them. And so I think for me, the lessons learned are really all about culture and about relationships and about being willing to slow down sometimes for us. And I suspect for Tony, sometimes speed up in ways that make him uncomfortable. And I think that's okay as long as the relationship is strong.
That's awesome. And go ahead, Tony.
Just to add to that, sorry about that. There's really just an open mind on both sides, I think is one way to put it. That we see a lot of different ideas in the issuing space, but we have a lot of trust in Marqeta that, hey, when they bring us a program, like, we're willing to try it, even though we have no idea if it's going to work or not, but hey, we're going to try it. Let's give it a shot.
And Tony, so one of the criteria that our judges used for awarding this award was sort of the impact it had on both the partners' businesses. I guess post Marqeta, like, how has Sutton reoriented its business with this tech focus?
Well, it's really a two-pronged approach. One, we are going to continue to support the spread business in Northwest and North Central Ohio, and be the best that we can be in the community bank space in the markets that we serve, and support. The best thing really that we can do going forward for these communities in rural Ohio is lend money to support the communities. But on the other side, we're saying, look, on the payments business and the revenues derived, we want to grow that so that it is at least what our spread business income is. So if you think about a traditional bank, net interest income, or the difference between what they take on their loans and investments and cash versus what they pay out in their deposits, that's the spread business. And then you got to always have some loan losses in there. We want our payments business revenue to equal that net interest income after provision for loan loss. That's the current kind of goal to get it there, and then where else can we take it is the question. And what other types of lines of business that are kind of parallel to this can we do? And at the same time, the partners like Marqeta are coming to us like, look, there's some traditional banking things that everyone needs. So can you support us from that perspective as well? So it's pushing us to bring in tools, services, and infrastructure, not only to support the payments business, but it's going to make us better on the traditional side of the bank as well.
Got it. Omri, I guess a similar question to you. I mean, obviously Marqeta is a very different company today than it was in 2011. How has the work with Sutton Bank impacted and affected, I guess, how you guys see the payment and banking industry evolving?
Sure. I mean, a few things. I think number one, when you scale, everything kind of gets even more serious, right? Yes, you need to care about that first card and that first customer and that first dollar, but at the levels that we're talking about now, not only is Tony and his business and his team and his stakeholders, not only are they on the line, Marqeta's got 400 people here. We have millions and millions and millions of cardholders out there collectively who rely on us no more so than in these last few weeks that have been quite tumultuous. They rely on us for things like groceries. They rely on us for things like medicine. And that's an incredibly sobering responsibility that I think if you hadn't gone through the journey that we went through together, maybe you don't understand and appreciate just how tough that is. But to me, that's been the big insight, which is at scale, when you're now a part of millions of people's lives on a day-to-day basis, there's just not a lot of room for error. And so, whatever differences, a rural bank in Ohio and a Silicon Valley tech startup have, they're just dwarfed by the sense of deep responsibility that I know that we both have around serving our customers and making sure those systems are up and we settle every night. And that's just super important.
That makes a lot of sense. Omri, I guess one last question we have, I want to ask both of you this question, but looking at the partnership, I guess in retrospect, like what were the biggest surprises along the way? And were there any actually?
I'll tell you just my experience, and I'm curious about yours, Tony. I was surprised by issues that we thought we had resolved that continue to get brought back up a little bit. Payments a little bit like whack-a-mole, right? Like you think, okay, we've solved the KYC issue, which is know your customer, which is in order to let people have a card that that settles money every night, you have to kind of know who they are and make sure that they're not bad guys, that kind of thing. You go through a process, you set up a process, and you think that you're kind of done, and then you realize, wow, that process worked for that use case. But what about this use case over here? Or that worked when you had 5,000 cardholders, but what happens when you have 5 million? And so you got to keep going back over old ground and tapping into that kind of relationship goodwill to make sure that you're checking every box, even if you feel like you've checked it again and again and again. And I suspect that's going to continue to spiral upwards as the businesses continue to grow together. Is just making sure that no matter how big this thing gets, we're bringing that same level of relationship, dialogue, and responsibility to the table with each other.
Tony, what about you?
Well, there's always surprises in this business. One is just sometimes a program comes on and it's moving along at a good pace, and all of a sudden it just takes off, and just you have that hockey stick effect. That has surprised us on a few programs over the years. It's a good surprise. Not surprising to us is kind of the constant, the stuff from a regulatory perspective, the expectations upon the bank and things like that. Unfortunately, there's some of the rules and laws that are out there I think need to catch up to what is really happening out there. Surprising to us too is some of the velocity of some of the bad actors that are out there, some of the velocity that things that they can do in a rapid fire. And you really have to, all the organizations have to be on their toes to really, plug the dike at that point, and then try to figure out, okay, how do we, how would we not have this happen again and repeating and things like that.
Tony, Omri, thank you both for joining us, and congratulations to both Sutton and Marqeta for winning the Tearsheet Bank Fintech Partnership Award for 2020. Appreciate your time today, guys.
Thank you very much, Zack.
Well, thank you very much, Zack.